Thank you, Mr. President. The sponsor yield for some questions on Part UU, Subpart F, dealing with mental health in courts.
Absolutely. The sponsor yields.
All right. Thank you, Senator Bailey. I'd like to draw your attention to they're underlined, so I'm assuming these are new changes regarding involuntary assessment and pending release. If you go down a little bit toward the bottom, it actually says essentially that during in order for someone to be held for a psychiatric evaluation, that the principal has to be conducting him or herself before the court in such a manner in which a person who is not mentally ill would be deemed disorderly conduct. So the question is, if someone committed some kind of a violent act and they were arrested, and it was deemed that it was due to a mental illness that this might have been the reason that they acted in this manner, would they have to then essentially act mentally ill in front of the court in order to be held?
Mr. President, it's not just at arraignment, but at any time prior to that, that an individual who is deemed to be mentally ill can exhibit those symptoms.
Will the sponsor continue to yield?
The sponsor yield, certainly. Sponsor yields.
So I appreciate that answer. I'd actually like to move on to a different subject now, if that's okay. You said several times that tonight you're doing clarifications. Now, I've read media reports after the release of this bill that said that there are going to be changes made to bail. I got a call from a reporter. Can you tell me about the changes that are being made to bail laws, cashless bail? I just want to clarify. You're saying that there are no changes being made, that these are just clarifications. Is that correct?
Mr. President, clarification is a change.
Mr. President, will the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield. Sponsor yield. Sponsor yield.
Well, no, actually, a clarification is the opposite of a change. You're just saying we're clarifying what we've already told you. That's actually the opposite of changing something, is it not? So let me ask you again. Are we making changes to the bail law tonight?
Mr. President, the initial answer to my response stands.
All right. Mr. President, will the sponsor continue to yield?
Does the sponsor yield? Sponsor yields. Sponsor yield.
All right. So to clarify, another point, another thing that I've heard is that we've talked about judges having discretion and that somehow we're giving judges discretion. After tonight, when this budget passes, will judges in New York State have discretion to hold someone based on dangerousness?
President, dangerousness has never been a standard in the state of New York and will not be a standard in the state of New York after passage of this legislation.
Mr. President, will the sponsor continue to yield?
Does the sponsor yield? Sponsor yields. Sponsor yields.
I just want to make sure, because this is a very important point. So after tonight, anyone in the media that's writing a story, judges will not have discretion to hold someone based on dangerousness. We're clear on that.
Mr. President, judges have never in the history of the judiciary in the state of New York had discretion to hold somebody in bail based upon dangerousness. Never.
Mr. President, on the bill.
Senator Borrello on the bill.
Thank you, Senator Bailey. Senator Bailey is absolutely right. Judges have never been able to hold anyone based on dangerousness in New York State. New York actually is the only state that has tried to address changes to cashless bail and actually have not considered dangerousness. So that's what makes New York unique, because unfortunately, the goal here wasn't to craft a responsible law. The goal here was to prove New York was the most progressive. And that's why we are where we are today. And we can sit here and tell people that there's no correlation between the spike in crime and the changes to the bail laws. Don't believe your lying eyes, New Yorkers. Nothing to see here. That's what we're telling them. But New Yorkers know better. And in fact, 82% of New Yorkers in that Siena poll that Leader Ort referenced believe that judges should indeed have discretion to hold someone based on dangerousness. So we can continue to tell people everything's fine, nothing to see here, or we can actually make fundamental changes, not just clarifications, to this failed bail reform law. Thank you, Mr. President.